And it is time for yet another market weekly update. So let's get into it. So first, the unemployment, and specifically those who have college degrees older than the age of 25, hit a new record in January with 36% being unemployed. This is a brand new record. Also, we got a ton of information about the economy today alone, with GDP numbers coming in at 1.4% for Q4 as opposed to the expected 3%. And of course, this is not good. This is below expectations. We were hoping for better. Not only that, but PCE inflation, or personal consumption expenditure inflation, which basically is a gauge that the Fed uses for consumer behaviors, was up 0.1% higher than expectations, hitting 2.9% overall and 3% for core PCE. Now, both of these numbers mixed with the jobs adjustment for last year of almost 1 million jobs puts the Fed in a really tough situation, because yes, what this means is we are further headed into stagflation. Now, what is stagflation and what exactly is going on with that? Well, to break it down very simply without getting into too much detail, basically the stagflation looks like this. The Fed has two choices. They can either raise rates or drop them. But either way that they go, something is going to have to give. So if the Fed decides to raise rates because they're concerned about inflation going higher than expected, that could potentially slow the economy down, which would negatively impact jobs, which are already on their way down. But if the Fed decides to lower interest rates instead because they're concerned about the job market and the 1 million jobs that weren't accounted for last year, then that would cause inflation to run potentially. So the Fed, of course, is just in between a rock and a hard place, right? They have to pick one or the other. Now, my theory, of course, and this is not financial advice, is that ultimately we will devalue the dollar or choose inflation as our crux to be able to help deal with overall market problems like unemployment. Also, to add fuel to this fire, we have the Supreme Court ruling just today that Trump's tariffs are illegal, which puts the US in a situation where we are looking at giving back almost $175 billion in tariff money. Now, of course, Trump has already made it very clear that he is planning to do other things, and he has other tools in his belt to be able to keep tariffs, which he has already introduced the idea of a 10% overall tariff across the board. So there are ways that he will be able to keep them up. However, short term, we still may look at having these massive refunds, which hurts the US economy even further. Now, as they've mentioned, this refund will be a slow and messy process, probably taking upwards of even 2 years to fully unwind. So we don't really know what the fallout's going to look like.